Welcome to Record Sports Hotline Live. My name is Daniel Coll. I'm delighted to be joined by a rather harassed Keith Jackson. Keith, how's it going?
Oh, running about with my head on fire, as per Daniel. This is what happens when the month of October comes round and the Rangers' annual managerial search begins. So, yeah, a bit frantic, but and a lot to discuss, I think, because I think a lot is happening as we speak.
Plenty to talk about, and who better to talk about it with, Keith, than Record Sports resident transfer guru, the one and only Scott Burns. Burnsy, how's it going?
Hey lads, how you doing? You alright? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Burnsy, loud and clear.
Is there an audio issue?
I think Keith Burnsy's actually struggling to hear us.
Ah, okay.
Which isn't ideal.
He's got dodgy Wi-Fi again.
He could hear us a minute ago, so I'm not sure what's happened. But okay, well, let me throw it over to you, Keith. They say 24 hours is a long time in football. They weren't kidding on, because the amount that's changed between us talking last night and now is significant with the Rangers managerial search.
Yeah, where to begin? So this time last night, as I'm sure our correspondents out there won't be slow in reminding us, there had been no contact from Rangers, certainly not confirmed contact between Rangers and Kevin Muscat's camp, even though we understood that Muscat was emerging as a person of, considerable interest to them and someone they wanted to speak to. Things moved, I think, while we were on the show last night, to be perfectly honest, and there have been talks over these last 24 hours. Now, there's various time zones involved in all of this. Kevin Muscat, obviously, Shanghai, I think, turns midnight in Shanghai, around about 5 o'clock UK time. So exactly how, where, when, he does have representatives that can speak on his behalf, obviously, that are a lot closer at home. But we believe there have been discussions. We believe it's accelerating, and even at the point that just before coming in to the studio there is this strong suggestion that if, and let's just put that in big capital letters, if Kevin Muscat accepts this position, and bear in mind, I will come back to something that I said before Steven Gerrard got into this stage in the same process, is that these guys will be wanting to interview the Rangers regime just as much as the Rangers regime will want to interview them. And there was a whole bunch of stuff that Steven Gerrard didn't like when he had a look under the bonnet, that these same issues could yet arise for Kevin Muscat or whoever else gets into this kind of position or into the reckoning. So I think it's far from certain that Kevin Muscat takes the job, because I think there's a lot of work for the Rangers board to do in order to convince him that that's what he should do. But I do know that it's something that he's wanted to do for a long time, and dating back to when he got involved in the interview process 2 years ago, he was desperate for it at that point. So much so that he went into the final phase of interviews, and it was himself, Philippe Clement and Frank Lampard were the three men left standing. Now, my information is at that point Kevin Muscat had drawn up his backroom team, and that Neil McCann was his choice for assistant manager. And so that is relevant now, because in the event that Kevin Muscat says yes, and that's an if he says yes, then there is a temporary fix or a temporary solution to fix an issue, which is that Rangers have got a game against Dundee United in a couple of days from now, if nobody's paying any attention. And they're in a position that the under-19 boss, Stevie Smith, is currently taking training. So there's a convenient fix there, isn't there? If Neil McCann was to agree, as I think he would do, to go in with Muscat as his assistant manager, as was the plan 2 years ago, then he's in an ideal position to hold the fort for however long it takes, a few weeks, whatever it takes. Could be as long as until November the 22nd for Muscat, because he's kind of tied into this battle at the top end of the Chinese Super League. He could win it before then and be free to move after the title was sorted out. He could lose it before then, I guess. or he might have to stay to the final day, in which case it would be towards the back end of November before he'd be in any position to get into the kind of base camp at Auchenhowie and start doing his work. There's so many ifs and buts about this, but I think what we can say is if Kevin Muscat agrees, if a deal can be agreed between Rangers and Kevin Muscat, then there is a high probability that Neil McCann could be kind of fast-tracked into the position in time for this Saturday's game against Dundee United. But it is a rather chaotic scene at the minute. And as I said, you know, it's one thing going into talks with Rangers, as Steven Gerrard has shown, that doesn't mean that it's a done deal. And I think there'll be a lot of persuading to do on both sides of that table before you got to a situation that a guy, and Kevin Muscat's a really credible candidate, I must emphasise that. And this is what I've said from the start of this. If you're a really credible candidate, you might encounter some red flags that you might find difficult to ignore once you get into the process and once you start looking at the structure of that football club right now. And the individuals who make it up.
Yep. We've got tons of comments coming in already. If you want to get involved in the conversation, let us know what you think of the goings on at Rangers and who you want to see as the next Rangers manager. Will we try Burnsy again? Burnsy, can you hear us? 1, 2, 3.
I can hear you. Can you? Have you got the misfortune of hearing me?
We can hear you loud and clear, Burnsy. And by the way, we're all waiting with bated breath. What's your version of events? What are you hearing over the last half an hour or so?
I just broke an exclusive there and it was in silence, but I can't go back in it now. Like the word over the last, I mean, certainly most of the day, like late last night and most of today, everything was pointing towards Kevin Muscat becoming the next manager. Well, sorry, certainly there was the preferred candidate to come to become the next manager. I mean, I've spoke to other representatives and candidates within the process, and they've all been told that the process is ongoing and no decision has been made. But as a board in that position, you're going to keep plates spinning until you've got the person you want, whether it's your first choice, second choice, third choice, fourth or fifth choice. So, I mean, there are other candidates who, as far as they're aware, are still in the process. So I think Rangers are going to keep rolling this out for as long as they can. I think the issue for the Rangers board is that they now are not really sure who they want. I mean, they've got people who think probably who fit who they want in terms of a coach and part of a system and how they want to play. But with this appointment now comes into play what the Rangers fans want. I mean, that was shown with Russell Martin. Russell Martin wasn't a popular appointment and he was quickly pushed out the door by, obviously, poor results and fan power. And the concern with the Rangers board is if they go again with a candidate who may be looked at, I wouldn't say, I wouldn't use the term weak, but doesn't have the stature of a Steven Gerrard or someone of that ilk, then that's not going to appease the Rangers fans. So whoever they bring in will be behind the 8 ball before they start. You know, your Danny Rose, whatever. He's very highly thought of within that Rangers boardroom. And there are people there who want to appoint him. But they are concerned that what the reaction is from the Rangers fans. And I think that's where we are just now. I'm not sure the Rangers board know exactly what way they want to go. Well,
I'll tell you a couple of things on that, Burnsy. Whoever's advising them and saying, guys, you might want to press pause on Danny Rowe, as much as I think he's highly rated, as much as he might well have come across, you know, quite impressively in his interview process, or the one interview that we think he's had, forget about all that. Because basically you're appointing a guy who's got one full season behind him as a manager, and his achievement from that one full season as a manager was to finish in 12th position in the English Championship with Sheffield Wednesday. Now, you might be absolutely blown away by his stardust and his PowerPoint presentations and all this, but you cannot escape that fact. Never in the history of Rangers Football Club has anybody merited the position of being a serious candidate to become the manager on the back of a 12th place finish at Sheffield Wednesday in the English Championship. So I think they'd be well advised to press pause on that. I think the fact that they've shifted their attention towards Kevin Muscat is actually quite a shrewd move, because This is a guy that's a proven winner. He's won titles in 3 different countries, obviously at 3 different clubs. And I think the main reason, because he was out of the 3 that he was up against at the last stages of the interview process 2 years ago, I thought he was the outstanding candidate. And I think, funnily enough, the thing that counted against him in the final analysis was a fear from the Rangers board at that time that they'd be accused of copying Celtic's homework. Because Celtic had just had Ange Postecoglou in for a couple of seasons, he'd gone to Spurs by this point. I think there was this kind of fear that they'd just be accused of, this is lazy. What you're doing there is just because Kevin Muscat had a background of kind of learning from Postecoglou and then taking over from him at a couple of clubs. And it didn't fit right for me, because if you actually looked at the work and analysed the work that Kevin Muscat went on to do, as you know, at these clubs, it was kind of universally acclaimed that he'd taken what Postecoglou had done and improved it. So I think he was a really credible candidate back then. And what's happened since then, by the way, he's went away and he's won a title in China last season, and he's now a couple of games away from potentially securing a second successive Super League title in China. So if anything, his credentials have skyrocketed, certainly gone up the way, while the situation at Rangers has flatlined or spiralled into decline. So I think if they could get Kevin Muscat, I think that would be a really decent appointment. And certainly from the initial reaction, I gauge that the supporters would look upon it very favourably. They would not look favourably, as Scott said, upon a Danny Role appointment, because they were prepared to sort of show a bit of patience and give the new board their place, given that, you know, the Americans had come in, they spent a lot of money and they'd earned the right to make their decision. They had serious concerns, and it's the same, based on the same set of principles as I've just said there about Danny Role. Forget about what you might think, forget about what the guy might promise. Russell Martin got that job in the back, and the latest addition to his CV was 16 games, getting Southampton relegated from the English Premier League. And on that basis, he should never have been in the discussion. And I'm afraid that it's just that situation now amplified onto the whole Danny Role thing, because the Rangers supporters won't give them time this time. They've seen that they made a decision based against the judgment of the fans, and the fans got exactly what they knew they were going to get from Russell Martin. They will not tolerate the same mistake being made again. And at that point, it's a real credibility issue for Andrew Kavanagh and his assembled board, and particularly for Kevin Thelwell, who, you know, just keeps blundering around from one really questionable decision to the next right now.
But if they were to do that, Keith, then how can they keep? I mean, no disrespect, right? But how weak does that show the board if they are to continue to be led by the fans? And I understand the fans have got a big say, but we're getting to within the stage of every bad result, they're going to be chasing people off the bus. I mean, where does it stop? They've got to take they've got to draw a line, make what they think is the best decision for the football club, and why they put the football experts in place, and go there. They can't just go back and be swayed by the angry mob again.
Listen,
that's not going to
totally take your
forward.
point. I totally take your point, but I think they tried to do that by sticking with Russell Martin for as long as they did, and it was in total defiance of a support that had already turned. Russell Martin could have been out. He lasted 120 days. He was lucky to get to 62 days because he was so far out his depth. It was so obvious, and that's what brought about such an angry response from the supporters. You know, I totally get your point, Burnsy, but what I'm saying is it's a really difficult situation to throw Danny Role into at this point, a guy with so little experience, a 36-year-old, and only his second managerial job, and he's already starting on day one with people growling at him, not through anything that he's done or that he's not done, but because of the decision-making and the decision-makers at Ibrox right now. And there's enormous distrust towards Kevin Thelwell, and I'd say it's justifiable. I think his position is untenable. So you've got a range of support, I think probably the vast majority of whom would agree with that. So they can't trust anything that Kevin Thelwell does. They can't look at it and say, well, I know he's got no experience, but Kev reckons he's a right good go here, a right good fit. Whereas with Kevin Muscat, at least they can look at a track record there and say, he's been successful everywhere he's been. He's won trophies. And that is the only metric that these Rangers supporters really plug into right now.
Go on, Burzy.
Keith, you mentioned there just about obviously Rangers holding on, showing a bit more patience to the Rangers board with Russell Martin. I think there was a financial element to that as well. And the fact he's been pushed out the door has cost the club millions. And the timing, when being forced by the fans, I know the fans wanted him out, but in the long run, it's probably cost them fortunes. If they'd maybe waited a wee bit longer, he'd have exited for a lot less.
That's funny you say that, Bunsey, because I know we're not speaking to the same people, but I spoke to somebody earlier on today who suggested that there's every chance that Russell Martin might push for the full whack of his contract paid up. And if that is because of a contractual loophole whereby if you last at least a certain amount of time in the job, it's maybe a quarter what it might have been. But yes, I've heard similar, and I've heard it's a really substantial number. Which again just points to the complete kind of farce which continues to unfold at Ibrox right now. Now, what they desperately need to get out of this sort of death spiral, is a man they can get behind, a leader, someone who can bring everybody and make them all filter in behind him. And I think Muscat is probably the best chance of that. Steven Gerrard would have been able to do it simply because of his popularity amongst the fan base. But I think Muscat would emerge as a leader. And I don't think there's any room for somebody to come into this position who's wet behind the ears and still learning the position, learning the trade. I just think that would be unfair on the guy that you were turning to. And we all kind of thought towards the end it was all pretty... It was a bit of a test, wasn't it? It was hard to watch. It was unedifying to see what Russell Martin was enduring towards the end of it. He'd contributed to that, obviously, and I felt he'd been arrogant and he'd spoken down to supporters. So he was far from blameless, but it was unedifying to watch. And you wouldn't want another young guy, inexperienced guy, thrown into this toxic situation just now that hasn't got the character or the experience to actually pull it all together again and get everyone unified. And I think a presence and a personality like Kevin Muscat would give Rangers a chance of that. But I do think that there's an interview process that he has to go through, and I revert to what I said earlier, that he's probably interviewing the Rangers board more than the other way around right now.
The Rangers fans, as you can see on your screen, are having their say on it today. I've been putting comments up. I'll run through a few of these before you let you go, Burnsy, if that's okay, and get your guys' take on it. This one, Luke says, good evening, Kevin Muscat is the right choice. No nonsense manager. He knows how to win, and the Celtic fans are bricking it. James, remember last night, James threatened to give us a dislike. Keith, he says, this is great news. I'm officially pausing my threat. Must have Muscat, which is really good.
Thanks, James.
Yep. Matt Weir says, not going to lie, I was all in Gerrard, but happy with Muscat. But for him to succeed, Thelwell must be replaced. Fans have not taken to him one bit. John also posed the question, will Muscat be happy to come in and work with Thelwell and Son?
Well, that's one of the red flags that I'm talking about, and it's probably one of the red flags that stuck out a mile when Steven Gerrard was taking a look at what the setup looks like.
And you can see there, Sean says, if Muscat takes the job from the end of November and results are terrible until then, he'll arrive into a cauldron of despair. And let me see this one from Rangers Easy OK. Says, I like Muscat, but the potential 4-week wait is a real problem for me. With 8 games, including an Old Firm semi and a crucial European and League games, he needs to take it now or we need to move on. And just very finally, our old pal Gianni writes in saying, how long does the new manager get before the circle starts again with their fans? Surely whoever it is, whether it be Muscat, you need to wait till the end of next season alone to try building something.
Well, do you know something? That's an interesting point. Now, I don't know what Muscat's situation would have been like in the summer because obviously the Chinese season has got a very different schedule. But if you were going to go for a Kevin Muscat, in much the same way as they chose to do when they went with Russell Martin, if you're going to redesign the style of play and sort of reinvent the wheel, you could, in an ideal world, you would give the manager at least a pre-season to try and lay down the foundations of what that looks like. To do it mid-season, when you're already sitting languishing 8th in the table, you've played 2 Europa League games, lost them both. It takes a big character to walk into the middle of that and say, yep, not only will I walk into this situation, but I will then also try and redesign the entire philosophy and the team's way of playing, style of play. So again, big decisions to make. The one thing that I would say, it can be done, because you watched a guy go in at Motherwell, and he was only there a short while, but he went in last season at a time when Motherwell were in a really difficult position in the league, totally transformed the way that Motherwell played football, and they came out the other end just fine. Ultimately having to get a new manager in the summer, but again, that's been a positive step in the right direction. But I would qualify that and caveat it by saying the difference in terms of the levels of pressure when you're trying to do it at a club like Motherwell and trying to do it at a club like Rangers are entirely different. And then the flip side of that coin is, well, you know what? If they can do it in a relative shoestring at Motherwell, why couldn't a good manager who knows what he's doing do that on the sort of wages that are available to spend on players at Ibrox?
Go on, Bunsey.
And saying that, I mean, going back to Muscat, obviously proven winner. He's won leagues in different countries, but Rangers is a whole different ballgame to the Chinese Super League, to the A-League. And I mean, he's also had one spell in Belgium in European football, which didn't exactly work well either. So I wouldn't exactly say that Kevin Muscat will be. You can never say never that anyone's a nailed-on success, but there'll be red flags with regards to the Kevin Muscat appointment as well. But the biggest thing for Kevin Muscat is that he has the support of the majority of the fans, and that will go a long way, and it will give him a lot longer than probably anybody else. And I think the way the Rangers board are just now, that probably suits them more than anything else, and it probably takes a bit of pressure off them in the short term.
I hear you, Bunsey. The other thing that I'd say about Muscat is, they went for Steven Gerrard first. Now, whatever you think of Steven Gerrard, and I can totally understand why that seemed like the smart move, because at a stroke, you'll kind of bring the temperature right down in terms of the anger levels among the supporters. They'll get behind it, buy yourself a bit of breathing space, and you put him in charge of leading from the front. I totally get all that. But the one thing you would say about Steven Gerrard is, and my question about Steven Gerrard from the opening of the discussions were, is this the same Steven Gerrard? Is he as hungry? Is he the same guy that Rangers got previously when he thought he was turning up and this was just a stopping point en route to replacing Jurgen Klopp at Anfield? Steven Gerrard has been battered and bruised over that period. He knows now that it would take a minor miracle or a Champions League win in order for him ever to be considered for the top job at Anfield again. So are you getting the same guy? Does he have the same levels of hunger? He was prepared to go away and work in Saudi Arabia, and that's usually a sign that you've kind of half-chucked it and you're looking for a pension pot. And what you would say about Kevin Muscat, contrary to that, the total flip side, is that this is a guy much like Ange Postecoglou, itching for the chance to get back into European football, itching for it, driven, hungry, determined, all the things that you might look at Steven Gerrard and wonder, is that fire still there? You couldn't make that argument against Kevin Muscat. He would be arriving here as a man on a mission, not as a man who was a bit wounded and bruised and feeling a bit sorry for himself because things didn't turn out the way he wanted them to. So yeah, and I accept, Bunsey, you're right. He had a go at it in Europe. It didn't work particularly well, but I think, I don't think the circumstances around that club in Belgium were brilliant at the time. It just didn't feel like a good fit. I go back to, of all the names that have been mentioned, apart from Derek McInnes, who you would say has always been the obvious choice, but Rangers have made no attempt to have that conversation. Derek McInnes has spoken today just to restate very publicly how content he is with Hearts, how happy he is to be there. I think you can dismiss the whole Derek McInnes idea. So of all the other names that have come around and all the other sort of potential candidates and people who have been interviewed in this Rangers process, right now for me, Kevin Muscat is head and shoulders the best man for the position. But that makes it an issue, as I keep coming back to, for the Rangers board, Kevin Thelwell, these guys. They need to convince him that it's a good idea. He's still got a year left in his contract in China. So that would also require them to pay up a few quid to release him from that as well.
And it'll also be a big financial bonus if he was to win the league as well.
Yeah.
Hence the reason why in the next few weeks he might not be going anywhere.
Such a cynic, Bunsey.
Burnsy, I'm conscious. I always say to Burnsy, Keith, just 10 minutes, mate, honestly. And it's always pushing half an hour. So, no, but Burnsy, we massively appreciate you coming on the Hotline Live. Much appreciated.
No worries. All the best, lads.
We'll get you back on soon. Cheers, Burnsy.
Ta-ra, the best.
Keith, I can see you breaking news every minute. I can see you. I heard your phone vibrating during that as well.
Yeah,
so
sorry.
hopefully we'll have some breaking news throughout the show. I love when that happens. We will be talking a little bit later on, maybe in the next 5 minutes or so, to our favourite referee, the one and only Des Roach, to talk about Willie Collum, VAR, and a few.
Is Des getting an interview?
Des's agent has been seen at Ibrox. That's all I'm saying. I will get Des on, but before we do that, Keith. I just wanted to run back. Obviously, you mentioned Derek McInnes, manager of the month again for September. He's kind of basically said there's no chance of the Rangers thing happening. We didn't even mention it, Burnsy, there. That last night after we finished the show, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was a name that was thrown into the mix by Paul Scholes, who insisted.
In bizarre circumstances.
Scholes basically said, I was with a guy the other night, can't say who it is, but he's managed Man United before, and Rangers wanted to speak to him. Burnsy, I think, said at the start, it feels like they don't really know who they really want.
Well, listen, what I'm not going to do is criticise anybody for getting round
of course,
candidates, and having conversations. I don't think you can criticise anybody for that. You could criticise them more if they've just decided it's this guy come hell or high water. I don't think there's anything wrong with looking to have conversations, sounding people out, getting an idea and a feel for what certain individuals or candidates could bring. What I would say is, that'd be another really hard sell, would it not?
Yeah,
I know he's a name.
Yeah,
but he's a name that is also damaged goods.
Just sacked by Besiktas.
And it comes back to this thing that and what they stand accused of. People like Kevin Thelwell, Patrick Stewart, is this sort of mentality that if you've been around English football for any length of time, no matter how badly it might have went, it makes you better qualified to take on the Rangers job than anybody that might be already over on the north side of the border, which is an astonishingly arrogant position to adopt in the first instance. But when it's gone the way it's gone with Russell Martin and going after a guy who has one of the worst records in the history of the English Premier League, and saying that it doesn't matter because just by being there, that made him the ideal man for the Rangers job. They have to learn. You can make a mistake once, I guess, even though you come out of it looking damaged and arrogant. See if you make the exact same mistake the second time and you get the exact same results. I mean, that will be inexcusable and unforgivable where the supporters are concerned, especially as they flagged up all their concerns when you try to do it the first time. And look how that ended up.
Absolutely. You can see, Keith, on your screen, we're now joined by the one and only Des Roach. Des, how's it going?
I'm good, guys. I'm good. And just putting it out there, no, I'm not being interviewed for the Rangers job.
Headline already. Des rules himself out of Ibrox gig.
That's exactly what he would say, Keith. Do you know what I mean? I don't think we can...
double bluff.
That's it.
I wish. All good, gentlemen.
You hear that one? That's even worse. I wish I was the Rangers boss.
That's the back page for tomorrow sorted.
That could be the front page.
Double entendre.
We've not had you on a while, Des, but I mean, obviously managerial sackings and all that going on. There's not been that many refereeing decisions all at once, but I think there's a few we talk about today, Keith. I think definitely. Yeah,
well, I think. Am I the only one, Des, that was confused by Willie Collum's kind of most recent VAR review show, in which he seemed to concentrate on a number of issues, and by the time it was all over, I was even more confused than I was before it started. Am I the only one?
Yeah, certainly not. Certainly when I watched it, the first two clips that they spoke about, it was completely contradictory to what he said in the first one when he spoke about the Celtic Kilmarnock one, where the balls came up and deflected off a Kilmarnock teammate onto the Kilmarnock player's hand.
Which we all agreed was was never a penalty kick.
Absolutely. It should never have been a penalty kick. But the fact that he starts it off by saying this is justifiable due to the fact that proximity doesn't exist within the laws of the game. That was the explanation that he gave. And then you went on to the St Mirren Kilmarnock game where the ball hits the Kilmarnock player in the arm again, and he said, no, that's not a penalty because of the close proximity. And you think, well, you're just going back and forward and contradicting yourself. And he then goes on and speaks about they've spoken to the stakeholders in the game, clubs, the KMI, players, etc. And speaking about impact and consequences, so we're going to listen to the stakeholders. He's told us all along that the KMI don't have any bearing on any decisions that they make in any training they give. So again, he's doubling down, to use a phrase that we hear. I just thought it created far more confusion than anything. And if he's saying that stakeholders are going to be changing how they interpret the laws of the game, I'm sorry, is that not FIFA's job for how the laws of the game should be done? It's not about you and I and the walking punter. I just felt it was completely baffling.
Well, there was one for me, and it was interesting, wasn't it? But the one for me, the Lawrence Shankland handball.
Oh,
I mean, it was your favourite, wasn't it, Matthew McDermott, that was involved on VAR in that one, Des? But
it was.
Can you offer me any sort of explanation to it?
Well, it was Greg Aiken who was VAR in that day,
right.
With Stephen McLean. And what he said was, the ball's hit his upper arm, it's accidental. I'm sorry, but in 99% of the occasions, handball usually is accidental. And that's why I would love to see us punishing handball by deliberate. But if
thought the rule, help me out, Des. I thought the rule was if you use an arm deliberately, accidentally, no matter what, and it helps you to control the ball, and then it ends up being a goal from that. There's no grey area with that, I thought, but clearly I must.
It shouldn't be, because he's obviously gained the advantage from it. He's gained the advantage from controlling the ball, and we've also been told that they'll always look at the attacking phase of play, the APP. So the APP started there. Yes, he didn't hit a shot from the halfway line, but he's gained the advantage by controlling the ball.
And they broke on numbers at that point.
Playing a forward pass to which he ends up on the end of, and he scores. So we've seen it before. Play's been brought back into, have we seen it at St Mirren last year at one point, where a foul happened in the St Mirren half?
I'll get brought back, yeah.
Yeah.
It was about 30 seconds earlier in the thing that was a foul. Yeah, that's right.
So I'm sorry, but if VAR has seen it, that's why VAR is there. Referees will make mistakes, like we all do. We'll all make errors. But VAR's there to look at it on TV to get those errors corrected. And even Shankland himself thought the goal was going to be called off. He wasn't anticipating it. Yeah, that was, I think, to say accidental. It's an accidental, but we'll allow the goal. I don't get that.
I'm a bit depressed by it, because I thought that we were slowly but surely heading in the right direction. But this is quite an early VAR review show, and I like you, Des, I didn't understand what the point was that we're trying to make, or how they could possibly attempt to justify some of the decisions. So it suggests to me that, if anything, we've taken a retrograde step, that we're in a little bit more of a confused state than maybe we were halfway through last season. We're going back the way. I
was hoping that we were getting it better, and certainly by Willie coming out with the transparency, and we can see it in the screen there, it's a clear handball. That's as obvious as anyone can see it. As I said, I thought we were getting better. I thought we were making moves forward. I thought it was this whole transparency as well, Willie coming out and talking, trying to explain decisions. Brilliant, all for that. But I think the handball this year, and I thought the season started pretty okay, but I think this VAR review that he's just put out is just muddied the waters and actually taken us back, and it's provided absolutely no clarity.
So it's doing more damage than good now?
Well, I certainly think that show certainly has done more damage than good, because what do we do and what do we expect for handball now? Was it proximity only matters when it matters to the SFA?
We've got some comments coming in for you, Des, that I want to throw at you, if that's okay. Ross says, Des, can you confirm what the KMI panel is actually for? When the VAR reviews show, it sounds like they never get any decisions right, but yet we still get their input on these VAR clips. And this one from Mark says, Des, please answer, as a referee, is VAR beyond saving? Is it easier to ref nowadays, and is the actual game better for you and the fans?
Is VAR beyond saving? It certainly shouldn't be. VAR should be there as an added value tool. That's there to add value to get the decisions correct if a referee makes one wrong. Now, it's not there to re-referee a game, but we've all seen decisions where it has been re-refereeing the game. Is it easier now to referee? It certainly should be. They've got more technology available than they ever had. They've got buzzer flags. They've got the microphone up. They've now got VAR. They've got people watching it on television. So it certainly should be. What we're saying is it's salvageable. Listen, it's not going away. It's a world tool now. It's not just getting used in Scotland. It's getting used all over the world. And there's been a lot of finance and a lot of manpower put into delivering it to ensure it goes. I've said it all along. Technology works. It's just about the people who are operating that technology.
Yeah, I know, but there's a problem, Des. When I spoke about this previously, when Willie Coles went to Hampden, calls us all into Hampden, and I enjoyed it, and I was glad for it, and I thought I learnt a lot, and it was good to be able to ask questions, and I'm all for that transparency, and fair play to Willie for that. But to stand up there and single out a specific, maybe 4 or 5 things, by the way, this is what you'll be seeing this season, these are the changes we're going to make, and then in day one, weekend one, you see the handball given against Kilmarnock for Celtic's penalty, and it flies in the face, completely contradicts everything that Willie Collum had stood there and say, this is what won't get you a penalty this year.
Yeah,
I find it extraordinary, and I'm just really getting to the point where I'm finding it really difficult to follow.
Well, without trying to be cruel and telling that, he always talks about coaching.
Be cruel, that's right.
He talk about, you'll get me hung. They talk about he's there to coach his referees. He's there to coach them in what to do. Well, on the evidence that we're seeing, it doesn't seem as if he's a very good coach.
That's a fair point.
So, and it's completely flying in the face of what you guys were told at a media briefing, what supporters and us stakeholders are expecting. It's just not. It's not applying in practice.
What Stuart Kettlewell was told to expect as well, clearly.
Exactly, and that's just where it gets. That's just where it gets very, very frustrating, and that's why, obviously, I know we do a podcast, and I'll come on with you guys, and that's why I will always give people can agree and they can disagree, but I'll always give an honest opinion and from an ex-referee's point of view.
It's fair to say that the fans writing in, guys, aren't a fan of VAR, as if you didn't, you don't need me to tell you that, but here's a few more comments. Your loyal Muppet says VAR has been a complete joke. We need more angles to see all over the pitch, not just a few. Rabdo says VAR is staying and he's all for it as long as it cancels out honest mistakes. Sean says I'd sooner go back to refs getting spotted coming out of supporters clubs and continuing with VAR. It kills atmosphere and slows the game down. This one, Paul McLaughlin says refs have been mic'd up now. There'll be no need for assistant refs. We've seen that down south, haven't we, this season with referees on the pitch like it's American football addressing the stadium. And I get it, maybe gives a bit of transparency, but to me personally, I find it so cringeworthy.
Maybe we'll get AI refs.
Exactly. Maybe we should.
I think the thing up here in the vast difference from England, and we're talking about the camera angles there, we don't have enough camera angles to show the whole way that they do in the English Premier League. We're obviously doing VAR light, so to speak.
Yeah.
But
it sounds like VAR light.
But I just don't think that the education that's been fed down the way is being promoted and used on the pitch, because if it's obvious to all of us laymen now just watching the game, then surely it's got to be handled better in a professional body like the Scottish FA and the training and the application that it goes into the game.
And McCann in the comments, just to round it up, says it's not VAR, it's the problem is it's people using it.
Exactly as I said.
Aye.
So it's all down to the coach, and maybe need a better coach.
Aye, that's it.
There's a lot of that going about these days, Des.
Aye, well, it's a Scottish problem, isn't it? The gift that keeps on giving.
Des, it's your appearance on Hotline Live has been long overdue. It's been really good to get you back on.
No problem.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Hotline Live.
Cool. I'll see you guys soon.
Thanks,
Cheers,
Des.
Des.
Take
See
care.
you soon.
Cheers, mate.
Des Roach there, Keith. Favourite referee. The referee corner with Des Roach.
Resident ref.
That's it. And some good questions as well. Appreciate everyone sending that in.
And I'm glad that he didn't have one of those sort of dodgy bedsheet backdrops tonight.
I know.
Nice and clean and crisp.
For anyone that hasn't seen that, look that one out. That was a funny episode. I think that brings to the end of Tuesday night's Hotline Live with Record Sport. As I say, the comments have been absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much to not only Des Roach, but Record Sport's Scott Burns as well. And Keith, to yourself, it's always a pleasure.
Likewise, Daniel.
We'll be back
again tomorrow.
All again tomorrow at 6 p.m. Hope you can join us then. Cheers.